A very warm welcome, everyone. This is Faisal Bari. I am a senior research fellow at IDEAS and also an associate professor working at LUMS, and have been doing some research on the issue of disability in education. We in that research, we also want to have some conversations with people that we meet who are doing work in the area and actually doing tremendous work. And one purpose of these conversations is not only to highlight the issues that they are focusing on, but also to talk about the work that they're doing. So it's a pleasure today to have Tabish Shahzad with us. Tabish is the CEO of KDSP, Karachi Down Syndrome Program. Tabish, just to begin, first of all, a very big thank you to you for joining us. If you can begin by just introducing yourself and telling us a little about your journey and how you came to KDSP and what has happened before and what made you join KDSP and when.
First of all, thank you for having me, Dr. Bari. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you, speaking on this fantastic concept altogether. And thank you for conducting this research in Pakistan, which is perhaps happening for the first time. So my name is Tabish Shahzad, and currently I'm working at Karachi Down Syndrome Program as the CEO. Well, I belong to the development world. It has been more than 12 years. I've been working in the social sector, from education to healthcare. And before that, I'm a business graduate, so I used to work in a couple of multinational firms, local as well as international. I worked in UAE for 4 years, came back, joined the social sector, and since then there's no turning back. And I've been working in KDSP since the last 6 months now, and loving every bit of it.
So, Tabish, let me start with asking the most sort of basic of question: what is Down syndrome?
Okay, so you see, Dr. Bari, in every cell in the human body, there is a nucleus, right? Where our genetic material is stored in genes, which is responsible for all our individual traits, and it's like grouped together around rod-like structures. Jinko, we perceive those as genes, but they're actually chromosomes, right? So typically the nucleus of every cell contains 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so half of which are inherited from each parent. But Down syndrome occurs when an individual has full or partial copy of extra copy of chromosome number 21. Okay, so this additional genetic material causes different characteristics, which differentiates a typical individual with an individual with Down syndrome. So, some common physical visible traits could be a little bit of flatter face, slanting eyes, one crease around the palm, across the palm. So people can identify. So there are 3 types of Down syndrome, actually. Number 1, translocation, which accounts for 3% of the total population of Down syndrome cases. That occurs when the total number is still 46, but one additional full or partial copy of chromosome 21 attaches to another chromosome, which is usually chromosome 14, which accounts for only 3% of the cases of Down syndrome. Second is mosaicism, which accounts for 2% of the cases of Down syndrome, where usually there is a mix of 46 and 47 pair chromosomes, actually. Third is trisomy 21, which is the most common one, which accounts for 95% of Down syndrome cases. That occurs through a process which is known as non-disjunction, which means the error occurs in the cell division. So that happens across all chromosomes, across all cells, when there is an extra full or partial copy of chromosome 21. So this is the most common one, which occurs in 95% of cases in Down syndrome. Now, NDSS, which is the National Down Syndrome Society, it has a fair statistics which is followed worldwide, which says 1 in 700 babies born have Down syndrome, right? So if we look at the number of Pakistan, UNICEF says 16,000, approximate 16,000 babies are born every day in Pakistan. That means if you take 1 out of 700, it means 22 babies are born every day with Down syndrome.
मैं सिर्फ इतना चाह रहा था जानना कि 1 in about 20 children per day. So in a population as big as Pakistan, कितने लोग होंगे जिनको Down syndrome होगा?
So we take the same number, same statistics, because for the lack of statistics, which is specific to Pakistan, so it's coming up to a population of 300,000 across nationwide. And if you take Karachi's population, we have a number of 30,000 children which we have to cater.
Right. आप कुछ और कुछ बेसिक चीजें बताएं लगी थी इसके साथ? हाँ जी.
मैं बस बता रही थी कि so when you hear Down syndrome, so a lot of people think that as the name suggests, there is some inferiority attached to the syndrome, right? So people say there's something down about it, right? I'll give you an interesting background. So in 1866, an English physician known as John Langdon Down is the one who identified these facial features and other characteristics of individuals with Down syndrome. Hence, it has been named for the person who identified these characteristics. So you see worldwide, even if we take, so there's a number which says 350,000 children are born every day worldwide. So that's a substantial number of individuals being born with Down syndrome, right? So that's around 500 per day. So it keeps on adding to the population of individuals with Down syndrome.
Tabish, so when do parents find out? You've talked about some physical differences or easily identifiable characteristics. So is it on birth that usually a diagnosis happens, or can it happen before, and sometimes is that missed on birth and it happens later?
So you see, Dr. Bari, there are 2 types of tests that are available to, one are screening tests and the other is diagnostic test, right? So screening tests can happen in the first and the second trimester. So that's a basic blood test that can identify if the child, has some kind of disability. And then there are diagnostic tests, which are, now there are various forms, differs from country to country, but general test is, it's a placenta test. They take cells from the placenta of the mother, and it's tested through a process known as chorionic villus sampling, which is CVS, and the other is amniotic fluid testing. So these are the 2 diagnostic testing which are done before the birth. And for newborns, there is a test known as karyotyping, which is a blood test, which is done through obviously for newborns. But a lot of people and a lot of doctors, they can identify a newborn having some kind of facial features which can be identified as Down syndrome. But generally, a lot of just to make sure that karyotyping is done, because some newborns would have similar features as well, right? Down syndrome and swollen eyes. So you can't really say yes or no. So some doctors do suggest to go for karyotyping testing.
And so, okay, so once there are 2 related things that I want to ask here. Once you have a diagnostic done and you find out that the child has Down syndrome, what does it mean for the child, mother, and family? And what sort of support is needed? So what changes and what support is needed then to make sure that the child has full sort of support to develop and get to the potential that the child has?
So you see, first of all, we need to understand and establish the fact that Down syndrome is not a disease. Okay, it's a condition, and a condition that is acceptable like any other condition that a child might have been born with, right? So first of all, if the news is broken to the parents that your child has a Down syndrome, there is nothing to be sad about. There's nothing to worry about. It's something to celebrate, because you see, if there are most people with Down syndrome may have mild to moderate cognitive disabilities, but I would also like to include that they are also not indicative of the fact that they don't have any kinds of strengths, right? So a family of typical people. So when I say typical, there are some terms that we need to identify, right? So when I say typical, I mean, I don't want to use the N word, but that's why we use typical word, right? So
Sometimes we say mainstream also, but that's, yeah,
that's
but
okay.
typical is fine. Yeah.
So a family of typical individuals also have strengths and weaknesses, right? But collaboratively, they become a family. They support each other. Say, for example, I might not be that good at maths, where how my brother is. I am good at arts. My brother used to suck at arts, right? But it's okay. So we as a family, we support each other. So social inclusion is something which the parents have to think about at the first place. This communities have to think about. See, social inclusion is it's not an outcome, it's a process. So it's a process where an individual is respected, their rights are guaranteed, not only passed by the law, they're participative in the community, right? So now that has happened over a period of time in our culture as well, thanks to organizations who are working in different disabilities. Parents now know where they have to go. Parents now know how to accept and value what individuals with Down syndrome have to offer. And we have parents here at KDSP, and they say these children make us more happier than our typical children because they are more social, right? So they are more helpful if given a chance. That's the only thing. You have to give them equal chances, equal responsibilities, equal exposure to the world as you give to your typical children. So this is what is the responsibility of every parent, because you see, inclusion happens not just at an individual level. It has to happen at various dimensions and at various levels, from an individual to a family, to a community, to national, international, or across communities.
Tabish, if I may ask, इसको मैं दो तीन हिस्सों में कर दूं. There are certain myths that surround this as well. There are also certain, I think, anachronistic तो शायद ज़्यादा strong हो, लेकिन पिछले 30-40 साल से जो चीज़ें हमारे जहन में चली आ रही हैं. One of them के children with Down syndrome have more medical issues as well, in terms of physical health, etc. But I've also seen statistics where the life expectancy has really increased over the last 20-30 years as well. So थोड़ा सा पहले वो health पे बता दें कि physical health में क्या 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 चीजें आ जाती हैं, और what are some of the typical things that a child with Down syndrome might face on the physical side. फिर मैं बाकी चीजों पे आता हूँ about education and other aspects of social life.
Okay, so it is definitely a myth that people with Down syndrome are always sick. It's a myth. So the reality is that people with Down syndrome are at an increased risk of certain medical conditions because they are born with a condition known as hypotonia, which means they have loose muscles, right? But as you said, as you just mentioned, that their life expectancy was back in the 80s, it was just 20, 25. Now it has increased to 60, 70. All thanks to the discoveries and the people who have made an effort in learning more about Down syndrome, all the way from inclusion to their health to education. their capacity building, their skills. So you see advances in healthcare definitely is one of the contributing factor. But the fact that you see in isolation, healthcare cannot contribute to such a drastic number. So it has to be the community support, it has to be the family support, it has to be education, it has to be in giving meaningful life, everyday life to a person with Down syndrome.
So it would also seem, Tabish, then the earlier that the parents start providing that support, the better it would be for child. क्योंकि अगर वो muscle tone भी कम है तो physiotherapy और थोड़ा सा बड़ा हो तो language की और बाकी चीजें. So the earlier the better, right?
Yeah, so like we talk about typical children as well, the first 1,000 days of life are equally important for children with Down syndrome as well. So because of their condition known as hypotonia, their physical therapies can start from the first day of their life, right? So we get children from the first day of their life coming to KDSP for physical therapy. Then we have occupational therapy for their fine motor skills as well. And then we have speech therapy, because you see, tongue is also a muscle. So you have to really work with developing the tongue as a muscle to be able to speak and to be able to gulp. So the earlier, the better. Of course, we have early childhood intervention as a completely separate, segregated, independent area of service which we have to offer at KDSP. I don't know whether you want me to introduce KDSP services right now or maybe later.
This was a segue into KDSP because I have been there a number of times. I've met some of the parents also, and was very fortunate to meet some of the children as well who were coming for therapy and so on. And I mean, KDSP services are so essential that I feel my one question to KDSP has been, why is it just in Karachi and not in all cities across Pakistan? Because obviously children are distributed across Pakistan, and so it has to be there. And even in Karachi, why is it the size it is not much bigger than what it is? So this is a wonderful time. Please tell us a little about KDSP, the services it is providing, and how is it thinking about the future in terms of expansion to other cities, etc.
So I always like to start off with the story. So somebody asked me, what is that moment in life that you would want to relive? So instantly, what came to my mind was when I first held my first newborn. I mean, I think nothing compared to that feeling. And then I think of a couple who was also given the same good news, felt through the same awesome feeling of holding their firstborn into their arms. Later to find out, 9 hours later, their firstborn was under a cardiac arrest. And that's when they were told that their child has a Down syndrome, right? So when they discovered that, little did they know what Down syndrome had in life for them to offer. They were still celebrating till that child struggled out of vent after 10 days, and then in ICU for a month. But the trauma didn't end there. The trauma actually started when they started inquiring about what needs to be done to make a life worthwhile. But they couldn't find any answers. But they kept on fighting for their child, right? And they went to another city in the world, another country, and they found out where they were waiting in a clinic which was very popular for Down syndrome. An employee was an individual with Down syndrome working there. So hence the contrast, and that gave them a hope. Okay, their child can have a purposeful life as well. Then they came back to Pakistan, and that is when in 2014, they established Karachi Down Syndrome Program, because they thought that they had the resources to go outside, but everybody doesn't. So when they came back, they started a billboard advertising campaign asking individuals who have children with Down syndrome to come forward and join the movement, because they had by then decided to formalize an organization dedicated for children with Down syndrome. So they had a very small target of just collecting 100 families, right? They could not even collect 7. They were only 7, including the founder of KDSP himself. That actually gave him a bigger challenge to work on, that was creating awareness about Down syndrome, that it is not a disease, it is just a condition where individuals with Down syndrome, if given the right choices, they can shine brighter, right? So this is where KDSP was formed in 2014. With a simple mission to provide a platform to individuals and children with Down syndrome, where they're heard, they're valued, and they're included, and they're active participants of the society. And we work with the families, not just the individuals with Down syndrome. And when we say we work with family, we mean that from day one, when the families come to KDSP, we embark on a journey with them, their journey of life with the family and the individual with Down syndrome. And we call that Kashti. So Kashti is an acronym of our 6 areas of service that we have to offer to the parents. And the concept behind is that, we work with the families as we navigate the waters of life with them. Sometimes they're going to be choppy waters, sometimes it's going to be a smooth sail, but we work with them to provide maximum opportunities to the individuals with Down syndrome, as well as peace of mind for the parents. So we work towards removing all kinds of barriers, whether they are perceptual barriers, whether they are physical barriers, or if it's a financial barrier of the families to be able to give equal opportunities to their children. So the 6 areas of services are, the acronym is Kashti. So K stands for Khandani Sahara. As I mentioned, that we work very closely with the families, because you see, we need to understand that families have a very important role in encouraging people with children with Down syndrome, right? To show, to exhibit to the world what they're capable of. If not done so, they will not be able to shine at all. So we work with families, we give them informational support through awareness sessions about how to live, happy life, how to give a meaningful life to their children with Down syndrome. It could be a topic on how to, reach out to mainstream schools for inclusive education, and we also give them emotional support, right? So how to deal with the emotional ups and downs when you have individuals with Down syndrome in your house. And last but not the least, there's a financial support extended to the families as well. This is just to remove all the barriers, as I mentioned before. A stands for Agahi, which means awareness. As I mentioned, the purpose of existence, KDSP, was to raise awareness and spread the correct information through channels, through events, through doing awareness sessions at schools, universities, corporate offices, because this forms a society, a positive society for these individuals. S is Tehet, which is healthcare, which I just mentioned, that we work with leading healthcare institutions like Indus Hospital, SIUT, diagnostic labs like ISA Labs here in Karachi. And of course, the core objective is to provide peace of mind to the parents regarding the health of their child. We also have general pediatric clinics here at KDSP and developmental pediatric clinics here at KDSP, so that, it's easy to send them anywhere else. It's just that we don't want them to run around here, and we all know how our healthcare is. You have to run from place to place to get things done. So this is what our parents expect from KDSP, and we work really hard to keep up their expectations. H stands for Skill Hunar, which is, of course, our skills development program. And our basic aim is to, just to help the child discover their true potential. So we expose them to various programs like painting, paper crafts, pottery, weaving, photography, and multiple others. So we have a lot of programs that we have to offer to these children. And within skills development, we have a program which is known as Education for Life. And purpose is to provide a platform for adults with Down syndrome who have perhaps missed out on going to school because of lack of advocacy in previous years. But now we help them discover themselves, what they like doing, what they can do, from as simple as getting up in the morning and making breakfast for themselves and their parents, because we teach culinary arts here as well. So they wake up to a happy, purposeful life, right? Rather than being felt segregated out of the norm. Okay, okay, you just being careful. And of course, they earn parents' confidence as well. While they feel confident, they actually exhibit confidence as well. So when they exhibit confidence, the acceptability starts from their parents, to their close friends and family, to the society altogether. Then T stands for Talim, and we have a school readiness program as well. So we work on both ends. We train children to be able to get admissions into mainstream schools, and we work with the mainstream schools to include these children into their regular schools, because you see, research also suggests that children with Down syndrome learn and thrive more when they are in mainstream schools. And research also suggests that typical children also get to learn more from children with Down syndrome as well. So our enrollments age starts from 1.5 all the way to 3 for our early childhood or school readiness program. Then we have program for inclusive education, wherein we work very closely with the mainstream schools to give admission to children with Down syndrome, because we've already prepared them. And then we have a tailored assistance program, which happens in the afternoon, which is an individualized education plan for each child who goes through mainstream schools and comes to us in the afternoon for more enrichment. So this is what we have. And last but not the least, which is Ibtidai Bunyad, which is the last I of our Kashti, which means early childhood intervention, which includes all the therapies that we have to offer, because as I mentioned, these children have hypotonia. So we have speech therapy, we have physical therapy, which focuses on improving how a person moves. So because children with Down syndrome who have hypotonia, they have poor muscle tones. So literally children learn to walk here at KDSP. They take their first steps here at KDSP. And the third type of therapy is occupational therapy, where they learn fine motor skills, like, how to close their buttons, how to brush their teeth, how to comb their hair. And of course, language altogether has two broad areas, right? So there's a receptive language, and then there's an expressive language. So children with and individuals with Down syndrome are fantastic in receptive language. They're understanding everything, they're processing everything, but they may need a little help in expressive language. But while they're getting used to and perfect and being more expressive, one fine day they'll start communicating to other people like anyone does.
Tabish, if I may just ask now, this is the KDSP program is quite unique in the sense that I haven't come across similar program for Down syndrome anywhere else in Pakistan. And so my concern, as I said, it's 2014 when it started in Karachi. I now hear that there might be a chapter in Islamabad very soon, I think, or is underway. But what about many other cities and so on? What will it take to have such specialized programs across Pakistan? Is it partnerships that are needed with both public and private sector? Is it that KDSP has to replicate itself? Is it that some concerned citizens have to come forward in all the other cities to provide the core for the effort? So what will it take for this programming to spread across Pakistan and provide this support to the children who need it?
What will it take? It's a good question. So what we were trying to do up till now, Dr. Bari, was, you see, there is a lack of research body for any disability in Pakistan. Forget about Down syndrome. So what we were preparing for in the last 9 years was perfecting ourselves in terms of how to provide quality solutions to individuals and children with Down syndrome, right? So there was no manual that we could replicate here in Pakistan. So we developed everything on our own. So all these service areas, so you talk about education, you talk about skills, you talk about therapy. So everything is developed by KDSP from scratch. Now, as you rightly know, we are moving to, inshallah, to Islamabad early next year. We'll be operational in Islamabad, and now we are ready to replicate our program all over Pakistan. Initially, we were not even sure of whether we'll be able to deliver that quality. But now we are sure we have all the dockets ready. We say whoever wants to come and replicate KDSP across Pakistan can please join hands with us. We are moving to Islamabad, and our aim is that we want to be present in all provinces of Pakistan before we move on to at district level or tehsil level. So we are going to Islamabad, inshallah, next year. We would like to open Lahore maybe the next year after, and then Quetta, and we'll see how it follows.
Inshallah. This is wonderful news because obviously, as you mentioned, the population is dispersed and the children who need help are there, and the later they get help, the more difficult it becomes sometimes to learn everything that is possible, like any child for that matter. Anything you'd like?
I would just like to add one thing, Dr. Bari.
Gigi,
so as I mentioned that we started off with 7 families. Today we have 2,000 families on our board. And just the fact that, as I mentioned, हमारी जो education से लेकर skills, everything is individual plan for that child. So it's a one-on-one plan. That is what we are perfecting in, inshallah, and we will replicate the same all across. Or we dream that entire population of Pakistan of individuals with Down syndrome we are able to reach out to them. But we still have a long way to go. We'll get there.
इसमें यही है जो मुझे समझ आई कि there are different levels of interventions and there are different degrees of sort of intensity of that intervention as well. तो जो तो आपका advocacy का काम है वो तो हर जगह हर वक्त हो सकता है. उसके लिए तो जरूरी नहीं कि वो आप लाहौर में हैं या नहीं, because that advocacy work is awareness raising, advocacy, ये वो चीजें, और diagnostics क्या है, टेस्ट क्या है, ये वो तो हो सकता है. लेकिन जो individual work है, obviously that is very resource and time intensive, क्योंकि बच्चे के साथ काम करना है ना, तो वो तो individual के plan के साथ ही हो सकेगा, वो तो उसके बगैर. And that's the part which my feeling is 2,000 children is massive when you think about work with every child 3 to 4 times or whatever times a week and so on, और फिर parents के साथ, फिर बाकी लोगों के साथ, right? So वो वाला part is difficult to expand beyond certain numbers, because हर चीज की एक लिमिट है. आपके पास जो therapist हैं उनके भी numbers की कहीं लिमिट होगी, आपके पास जो जगह है उसकी भी लिमिट, and that's why replication is important and needs to come in. Advocacy side पे तो उसकी जरूरत नहीं. So there very different sort of outreach that KDSP I'm sure is doing in their work.
बिल्कुल. एंड एडवोकेसी का सबसे बड़ा फायदा यही है ना कि अब कोविड में हमने बहुत सारी चीजें सीख ली है कि हाउ टू बी मोर एफिशिएंट वर्चुअली. सो से फॉर एग्जांपल we still have parents on our database जो कि they are out of Karachi. So we work with them, give them home plans till the time that they get a chance to come here physically, or we go to them. They can start working with their children and individuals with Down syndrome. Because you see, it's not only education education mein children come here every day. Therapies mein they have to come thrice a week. But education mein for school readiness program, they come every day. So their milestones are measured and worked throughout every day. So that is the beauty of this program. There is a little bit of constraint in terms of replicating in a much faster pace, because it's a very niche area that we work upon. And of course, for the lack of support and the lack of statistics that we have in our country, but we are trying our best in terms of giving the best to the parents, because and to individuals with Down syndrome, because they deserve the best.
And the parents that I met at KDSP in the 2 or 3 visits that I've had now, I've seldom seen parents more satisfied with the quality of services that they're getting, and also with the fact that they said that before we came to KDSP, we were really concerned, and we didn't know what to do, where to go, what will happen to our child. And now, after the KDSP experience, they have a fairly good idea of what is being charted out. It will take obviously a lot of work and effort, but they know at least what the pathway is, and so I found that they were very, very happy with the support that they were getting and the level of detail and quality that was being looked at.
So when we see that gap, as a person from that institute, what you think in Pakistan, to what extent we are doing work to bridge that, to create a bridge between that, उनकी integration हो जाए.
ये जो सलीला कह रही हैं, इसको मैं जो when I was talking to the parents at KDSP as well, मैंने उनसे पूछा था ना कि how did you find about KDSP? So it was usually कि वो आगा खान या इंडस या ऐसी जगह गए जहाँ पे KDSP का उन्हें पता था, और जिसकी वजह से वो फिर उन्हें KDSP आने में आसानी भी हुई. So it takes that step from the diagnostic till finding out the resources. वो जो gap है, उस पे आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगी कि कैसे उसको हम cover कर सकते हैं?
So we have a very simple target of covering each and every hospital, each and every clinic in the city. And now, inshallah, when we move to Islamabad, we will do that. We'll follow the same, because you see, it's very important for the doctors and even the hospital management to buy in the KDSP's concept, not to break the news as some kind of a shameful or a sad news, to break the news happily. So that's what we trying to raise more awareness, and we do a lot of sessions with the hospitals and even the clinics here in Karachi as well, because it starts from there. The trauma starts from there. The way that the news is broken to the parents, the way that the families react. So it's an integrated effort that needs to be done from the hospital level, from the management level, from the families level, right? So even if Aga Khan would do it differently, more positively, if the families have a bad perception of it, they would actually take it in a different direction altogether. So we have a dedicated awareness department which just works on this agenda to raise more awareness about Down syndrome, which we're doing across universities, corporates, hospitals, schools, at all levels.
In the end, Tabish, I want to thank you again for taking the time. I mean, as I said, I'm really looking forward to the replication and expansion of the Karachi Down Syndrome Program in many, many cities, many places, and obviously as quickly as possible as well, because the need that you have expressed is very much there, and we need to do a lot more in this area. Thank you once again. A pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.